I'm dealing with the matter of inspiration. This is a part of our study on bibliology, which is a part of our study on systematic theology. You and I recognize the Bible is very clear. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God. That is verbal plenary inspiration. That's the position that I hold. I believe that all the Scriptures are equally inspired. But for the sake of our study, there are two other false theories of inspiration that I would like just to touch on today, and then we'll spend the balance of our time dealing with the matter of verbal plenary inspiration. There is what is so-called natural inspiration. On occasion, you'll hear men that will bring this up, or theologians that will write about this natural inspiration. Now, there are men, there is no doubt, that are exceptional artists. I enjoy music, and I have a massive music collection. I can read music and play music. My mother made me take piano lessons when I was a 6-year-old child. I play in the orchestra at the Rock Springs Baptist Church. I play the viola. And the viola plays in the alto clef, and I have to read the alto clef. And the music given to us, we have so much music that we do so quickly that we're not able to memorize it, and you certainly can't play it by ear. You have to be able to sight read in order to play. And I can sight read the alto clef, and I learned to read the soprano clef and the bass clef from playing the piano. Now, I'm stunned at the musical ability of some men. The great classical composers of Mozart and Beethoven, and I have much music produced by Johann Sebastian Bach. I personally like the Baroque era of music and appreciate that, have a fond appreciation for that, but also like bluegrass music. And I'm stunned at the ability that God has given men, great pioneers in bluegrass music like Bill Monroe and Flatt Scruggs and Reno and Smiley, and we can go right down the line of men that produced music. They could hear these themes in their head, they could hear these melodies in their head and could produce them, could write them and play them. And now you and I have music that many of us have memorized, and sometimes you'll whistle it or hum it, or whenever you hear the melody, it stands out in your mind. Now, it's obvious that these exceptional individuals, like Beethoven and Brahms and Bach and Bill Monroe, it is without question that these are exceptional individuals, and they have produced what I would consider to be masterpieces. And the music they have provided and produced, I consider to be masterpieces. Now, they call that natural. The theologians and the writers call that natural inspiration. But here's a problem. There are some unbelievers that appropriate the inspiration of the Bible to the same inspiration or level of inspiration of musicians, music composers, or poets, or tremendous writers. And it is at that point that I could not disagree with these individuals any more than I disagree with them. I disagree with them so fervently that I can't disagree with them anymore. Such an idea as this would give to us that anybody that is a gifted individual, has a gifted vocabulary or gifted ability, should be able to write Scripture. Of that, I reject outright, forthwith, absolutely. I reject that completely. Then there's another false theory called mystical inspiration. I would reject this just because it's named mystical. The people that advance this theory, they say that God is able to inspire someone today to produce Scripture, that God can awaken their personality and God can awaken their vocabulary. God can awaken with excitement or religious consciousness. And by that, they would be able to write Scripture. There's nothing in the Bible that advocates this. Furthermore, to teach such an idea begins to lend itself to the false idea of a word of knowledge. On occasion, somebody will stand up and they'll say, God has spoken to me. God said this to me, and I have a word of knowledge that I would like to convey to the church. I put zero authority on such as that. And generally, when I hear men stand up, or women for that matter, stand up and say, I have a word of knowledge, God has spoken a word in my ear, I can find 2 or 3 scriptures that are violated by the word, quote unquote, they allege that God whispered in their ear. I simply have no patience for that. I have no confidence in that. I do not embrace that, and I challenge you to not embrace that as well. That brings us to 2 Timothy 3:16. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God. There are 2 areas here that are dealt with by 2 Timothy 3:16. One of those is the matter of plenary inspiration. All Scripture. All Scripture. In the Scribner's received text from which the King James Bible is translated, the phrase, the Greek phrase, is pasa grapha theonoustos. Pasa, all, grapha, graphics, grapha, writings, theonoustos, God breathed. Theos, the name for God, noustos, the word for breath or to breathe. Pasa grapha theonoustos. All writings God breathed. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God. The second area that is dealt with in 2 Timothy 3:16 is the matter of verbal inspiration. God breathed. God breathed out the words. All writings God breathed. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God. Now, when I come to this text in 2 Timothy 3:16, and as a result of that, when I come to the Bible, the whole of the Bible, and if you're reading the English language, you need to be reading a King James Bible. I absolutely, without hesitation, believe that the text of the King James Bible is perfectly inspired. It is my position that the text of the King James Bible is a perfect document. The fact that God breathed out the words. God gave the words. Now, I've touched on this matter of revelation, that God had to reveal to Moses what he accomplished in Genesis chapter number 1. Moses was not there. God had to reveal to Moses what he did in Genesis 6 with the Noahic flood and the end of the antediluvian age. Moses wasn't there. All of that had to be revealed to the man Moses. So that brings me to this point. Someone would say, but Brother Ben, Paul sounds different than Luke, and Luke sounds different than Ezekiel. Ezekiel sounds different than Isaiah. Isaiah sounds different than Moses. If God gave the words, then why do each of the human penmen sound distinct? When I hear Paul, I know it's Paul. When I hear the Gospel of Luke, I know it's the Gospel of Luke. When I hear the Gospel of John, I know it's the Gospel of John. Why? Because God was able to give the words to the human penmen from their vocabulary, from their life experience, from the circle of influence that they had. When God gave the words to Paul, he gave the words to Paul in the sphere of influence of Paul's life, educated at the feet of Gamaliel, a member of the Sanhedrin, a Pharisee of the Pharisee. God was able to preserve the personality of the penman by using the vocabularies of the penman, and yet giving them the words within the framework of their own vocabularies, thus preserving their personality, preserving their background, preserving the revelation that God had given to them. And yet the words truly, without any doubt, are the words of God. The second thing that we have before us in 2 Timothy 3 and verse number 16 is a matter of plenary inspiration. Now, what do we mean by that? By verbal inspiration, truly God gave the words. Truly God gave the words even in the vocabulary of the human penman. After Isaiah wrote, and he looked back at what God had given him to write, Isaiah truly could say, I could not have said it better if I said it myself, because God said it through the pen and the vocabulary of the man Isaiah. We come to the matter of plenary inspiration. Now think about that word plenary. We get our word plenty. Plenty is in the same family of words as plenary. So whenever we use this term plenary inspiration, we simply, or I understand, and I hope that you believe what I believe, and I hope that you agree with me, that the matter of inspiration extends to every portion of the Bible, so that all of the Bible is infallible, all of the Bible is absolute truth, and all of the Bible is final as to the matter of divine authority. Now, unfortunately, there are some that are of the opinion that the Psalms may be more inspired than 1st and 2nd Chronicles, and that Romans may be more inspired than Acts, and that 1st and 2nd Peter may be more inspired than the book of Hebrews. And sometimes those that false theory is propagated with words like this. Well, Brother Ben, if the passage inspires you, it is inspired. Well, I'll be quite honest with you. I've read the chronology in 1st Chronicles. I read that every year when I read through the Bible. I read so-and-so begat so-and-so, and so-and-so begat so-and-so, and so-and-so begat so-and-so. And I'll be quite honest with you, I've never preached a sermon on those genealogies. But I read them every time I go through the Bible, because the genealogies are just as inspired as Revelation 6 and verse number 3. And after this, I looked, and behold, a red horse, and he that sat on him had a great sword, and to him was given power to take peace from the earth. I preached many times from Revelation 6, and also from Romans 6 for that matter. But I've never brought a sermon from 1st Chronicles chapter number 2, 3, and 4. But those passages in 1st Chronicles chapters 2 and 3 are just as inspired as Romans 6 or Revelation 6. That's what we mean by plenary inspiration. Now, my friend, you can believe the Bible. You can believe a King James Bible, because the King James Bible is without error and without fault. May the Lord richly bless each and every one of you until our broadcast on tomorrow.
You may write the Bright Spot Hour at Post Office Box 4, Greenville, South Carolina 29602. This is Mark Ferguson saying